All right, here we go. So I'm going to try to demonstrate how to shoot an arrow with our game, just for the students that need it. I don't want to do this whole group. So I figured I'd post this, and that way, if you need to, if you want to add the shooting projectile to your game, then you are good to go, and you could follow this. All right, so what I got down here is just kind of a slimmed up version of the game. I got the index file. I simply have a player. Let's see what I got going. If I press play, okay, so my player goes around. And now we're going to go ahead and figure out how to get these arrows. First thing is it's an object. Anytime we have an object, we need to add it into this directory over here. So let's add in the arrow file, create file, arrow.js. Let's copy and paste from the player, and then we'll alter it. Remember, whenever we add a JS file, we got to remember to do it in the index. I always forget this step. So let's copy that and just throw an arrow here. The syntax or the spelling's got to match however you name the file. Whoops, so I call it. Can I rename this? Yeah. I don't want the S there because it's not like I'm making multiple arrows. This object is only one arrow. All right. Okay. So inside our index, we got the arrow. Sweet. Boom, boom. So now let's go ahead and alter this. So I'm inside the arrow.js. We don't need a speed. It should be called arrow, not player. And display, we can keep all that. Updates. We keep that update for now. We're going to alter it to probably something called shoot is what we're going to aim to do. So let's just leave it blank for now. So as it stands, when we go ahead and create our arrow, oh, we should say this dot show. I like this feature that way. If ever we want just something to hide, or we want to take it out of our game, we can say this dot show, and we can set it to false, and then it just simply doesn't show up anymore. All right, I think we're good there. Now let's go back to our index, our sketch. Okay, so inside our sketch, let's go ahead and draw. We're going to draw 10 arrows, and we'll do that inside the setup, I suppose. We're going to put them in an array. So let's declare the array. Let's call it my arrows. And because it's an array, we need those square brackets there. And let's go ahead and create them in the setup. So because it's an array, we want to run a loop. So go from 0 to I less than, and then however many arrows you want to draw here. Let's draw 10 and see what it looks like. And then I plus plus. And now we're going to push new arrays into the new arrows into the array. Okay, so it's going to loop 10 times. So we want to say my arrows dot push. And we want to get a new arrow. This is calling the object. And the object wants 4 things. Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4. It wants the X, the Y, the W. And so width and height. X, Y, width and height. Go ahead and do that. Whoops, in our sketch file. So it's the first one is the X, so where we want to put it. I'm just going to put it at an index value of 100. The Y value. Here's the thing. I'm going to stack this. I'm going to stack this vertically. Sorry, I'm just looking to get a pen up here. Okay, so I want to put the arrow something like this. All right. So the X value over here is going to stay the same for all of them, and that's going to be 100. So we're not going to change the X value. But the Y value is going to change for each arrow that I create. I want to do this in one line, okay? So to do it, sorry folks, I'm learning how to use this thing. How do I clear this now? Okay, clear all done. Okay, sorry. So now, essentially we want to say the Y value is going to be, let's start at 100. So the first arrow will be at 100. And let's add, we want to add a little bit of an index. Sorry, we want to add a little bit of a gap in between each arrow here. So we want to add what? Let's go I times, let's try a gap of 20. And just to go over one more time, if we look at the math here, that this is going to happen. So I'm just looking for my pen again. Okay, so if we look at the math here, when I equals 0, which is the first iteration. If I do this math, it's 100 plus 0 times 10. So this evaluates to 0. So it's simply at 100. Then I goes up by 1. So now I is equal to 1. So now it's 100 plus 1 times 10. This evaluates 10. So the next arrow is at 110. And then I is going to go to 2, in which you'll notice is that this is going to go to 120, 130, 140, and that's how we're going to stack our Y values. Then width and height. I'm going to make my arrows rectangular, like a longer width. So my player is 20. Sure, let's go 20. Let's make the arrow as big as the player. And then let's try a height of like 2. See what that looks like. All right, semicolon that. No, don't. Yes, semicolon that one. So that should draw our arrows. Now we just have to display them. Okay, so let's grab this for loop again. All right, let's run a new for loop. Sorry. So for I equals 0. This time we want to go as long as I is less than arrows. No, my arrows. Dot length. And then we want to go I plus plus. And inside here, we're just going to show the arrow. So we're going to say my arrows at index I dot display. Could I use? I think I used that arrow. Yeah, dot display. There's a function call, so you need parentheses. So, did we forget anything? Let's find out. And we did. What did we do? Uncaught reference May arrows. Oh, that should be my arrows. Let's try it again. Bam. There they are. There's my 10 arrows. Sweet. All right. Next, we want to shoot the arrow. Okay, so we're going to load it up and shoot it. Here's the plan for that. So first of all, our thought process is this. When we press the space bar, essentially we want to place the arrow by the player. So we're going to take that arrow and put it here. We've got our stack of arrows over here. Okay, so we're going to put it there. And I'm going to make it travel this way. We can adjust the location. We want it to travel this way until it's got a stop condition. Either it hits the edge, hits a target, or it just flies off your screen. Okay. So inside the space bar, I am going to essentially load the arrow. And then I want to tell my sketch file, and specifically my draw function. Remember, the draw function cycles over and over, and essentially that's the engine of your game. That's what's spinning forever. I want to tell the sketch function, hey, that I'm shooting something. So is shooting. And I kind of set this to true. And then as you can imagine inside of your draw, you say something like, hey, if I'm shooting something, then I'm going to call a function inside the arrow that's going to make it travel. All right, that's my planning phase. That's kind of what I want to accomplish with the shooting. All right, let's see if we can make it happen here. So first we need to go check the keys. We want to check the key press. All right, and so the key press is a reserved function. I'm just looking over here. What's it called? It is called key press. Great name. Function. Key press. And so that open curlies. And I don't know what the ASCII value of the spacebar is, so let's go check it out. And it is key code. So let's go console.log key code. Key code should turn pink. Yes, it did. Sweet. So now if I hit the spacebar, I think the console should read out what the ASCII value of it is. 32. That's down here. So that means the ASCII value of the spacebar is 32, and we're going to use that. All right. So now we're going to say if key is down. This is a reserve word, so it turns like that darker blue there. So key is down 32, which means, hey, I'm pressing the spacebar. So if that's true, now what do we want to do? We want to load that arrow. But we got to keep track of what arrow is used in this, in like, I don't know, the sling here. Okay, so we need a variable for that. So let's just call it active arrow. Active arrow, let's set it to 0. All right, so now if the key is 32, we want to put that arrow inside where our player is. We're going to say arrows, which is the name of our array, at index active arrow. And let's go ahead and say dot x. So set the x value to, I want to set it to the right side of my player. So it's going to be the x value of the player plus the width. So it's p dot x plus p dot w. Whoops. This should have been x. So x plus w, so that loads it on the left side. And then where do I want to put the y value? I'll just set it at the top of the player. So arrows at index active arrow dot y is set to player dot y, which will put it at the top of the player. And then we want to say is shooting, right? Remember I saying we're going to have this like on-off switch. So is shooting, we need up here, it's going to be a global variable. Is shooting, we'll set it to false. So we're not shooting. But of course, when we go ahead and press the space bar, we're going to say is shooting is now equal to true. Now, inside of our draw, we've got our arrows here. We want to call a function. We want to check if is shooting is true. And if it is true, we want it to progress or to move, okay? So let's go ahead and go to our arrow function, and we're going to, inside the arrow is where we are, the arrow object, sorry, is where we're going to make it move. So instead of update, let's say dot shoot. Oops. So we're going to shoot. We don't need the key. Do I need anything else in here? I'm going to leave this blank for now. Okay, so this function is going to what? It's just going to move the arrow to the right. All right. So we're just going to say this dot x equals, or no, plus equals. I don't know what a good speed is. I'm going to try 3. The bigger that value, the faster the arrow travels. And then I'll just shut it off when it gets to the edge over here. So I'm going to say if this dot x is greater than the width. That's true. That means it's traveled off to the right of the screen. So let's just say this dot show equals false. It's actually still traveling. So it's, I guess it's still processing and it's still sitting there in the world, but we just can't see it. So we do have to remember to shut this off eventually or to kill it out of the array. Then we want to update the active arrow, right? So now we want to get the next arrow from the sling. So we can say, we want to make sure that we have enough active arrows. So as long as it's less than 10, we're going to add 1 to it. And if it's greater than 10, we're not going to do anything because they ran out of arrows. We're going to say if active arrow is less than 10, that's true. We can say, let's add 1, active arrow plus equals 1. So now you're on to the next active arrow. And we'll shut off the shooting. So remember, we've got that Boolean is shooting. Is that what I called it? Sorry, let's double check the sketch. Is shooting. Yeah, I did. All right, let's set that to false. Is shooting equals false. Boom. So now inside of our draw function, we're almost there, kids. Inside of our draw function, we're going to say, hey, if shooting, remember that means that the process is, it's like the switch is on. So if is shooting is true, let's open the curly brackets. And if that's true, then we're going to say my arrows at index active arrow, because we just want that one to travel, active arrow. Dot shooting, I think. And then parentheses because it's a function call. Got any typos? Let's find out. Okay, no error. Sweet. Spacebar. That stuff. What happened? Arrows is not defined. What did I do wrong here, folks? Arrows is not defined on sketch line 28. Sketch line 28. Oh yeah, this is my arrows. Come on. My arrows. My arrows. Good, let's try this again. No, did my like that. What do we do this time? My arrow shooting is not a function. Did I call it shooting? Shoot. Come on. So again, just a typo here, kids. So this should be shoot. Let's test it out. Drum roll. Oh yeah. Boom, 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 boom. What happens at the end? Oh, X is undefined. Okay, so I ran out of bounds. Why? Because I didn't set the parameters at the end right. So this shouldn't be 10. The active arrow is less than 10. One too many. Let's try 9. I think 9 will do it. Let's try it. There we go. Oh, and I get to shoot that 9th arrow forever. Here we go, air horn. Rock and roll. All right. Stop sharing. Stop record.